The words echoed through the cavernous lecture hall like a rifle crack. Stick to your politics. Math is for smart people. For a brief moment, a hush hung in the air. Then a few students chuckled, some nervously, others with the kind of smug amusement that often came from watching someone else get put in their place. Madeline Carter didn't flinch. She was seated halfway back, middle row, notebook open, pen resting lightly against her lip. Her dark brown eyes flicked upward slowly, meeting the gaze of the man who had spoken. A faint, almost lazy smirk tugged at one corner of her mouth. This was going to be fun. At the front of the room, Professor Stephen Langley stood with his arms crossed, his sharp blue eyes glinting beneath wire-rimmed glasses. His posture was casual, but everything about him screamed control. He had taught advanced calculus at Rutherford University for over 15 years. He was a fixture on campus, a renowned mathematician, a respected scholar, and depending on who you asked, either an academic genius or an insufferable elitist. Ever since Madeline had transferred into his class at the start of the semester, Professor Langley had been waiting for an opportunity like this. Today, he clearly thought he had found it. "You see, class," Langley said, his tone falsely light as he addressed the students with the energy of an actor playing to a packed house. Some people think political sound bites and rhetoric can replace genuine intelligence. But in this classroom, we deal in facts, logic, rational thought. He let the words hang in the air before flicking his gaze back to Madeline, as if daring her to respond. Madeline exhaled slowly and rested her chin on her hand, her smile widening ever so slightly. "Stick to your politics, huh?" If only he knew. Around her, students shifted in their seats. Phones discreetly appeared in laps. Even those who normally zoned out during lectures were watching now. "Dude," someone whispered from the back. "Is he seriously calling her stupid?" In front of everyone. "She's going to say something," someone else replied. "She always does." Madeline let the silence stretch a moment longer. The tension in the room coiled tighter with each second. Then she spoke, her voice calm, clear, and carrying easily through the hall. "So let me get this straight," she began, tapping her pen thoughtfully against her notebook. "You're saying only smart people can do math, Professor?" Langley chuckled, the sound dry as dust. "Not in such blunt terms, Miss Carter." "Because that sounds a lot like an elitist mindset," she replied, tilting her head. "And here I thought you academics prided yourselves on promoting equality." There was a collective intake of breath. A few students grinned. Others stiffened. Professor Langley's smirk twitched, just for a second. But he recovered quickly. "Equality of opportunity, Miss Carter," he said smoothly. "Not equality of ability. Some people simply lack the intellectual tools for higher-level mathematics." Madeline nodded, as if giving his theory genuine consideration. "Interesting perspective." She leaned forward, resting her elbows on the desk. "How about we test it?" A ripple of excitement passed through the room. Chairs creaked as students shifted forward. More phones came out, recording discreetly. Langley's expression hardened. "Excuse me. You're confident I don't belong here," Madeline said, as casually as if she were asking about the weather. "That I should stick to politics because math is for smart people." He gave a shallow nod, clearly pleased with himself. "So," she continued, "why don't you prove it?" For a heartbeat, the entire room was silent. Then the murmurs began. "No way. She's challenging him. Does she even know what she's doing?" Langley's jaw tightened. He couldn't back down now. Not in front of his class. Not with half the students already recording. He sighed, the sound theatrical. "All right, Miss Carter," he said, turning to the whiteboard. "Since you seem so eager to embarrass yourself." He picked up a marker and began to write. The equation that materialized was a monster. A tangled, towering nightmare of integrals, matrices, and summations that stretched from one side of the board to the other. When he finally stepped aside, revealing it to the class, a collective groan rose up. "Oh man," someone whispered. "She's toast." "She's so screwed," muttered another. Madeline stood slowly, rolling her shoulders back. She strolled to the front of the room, cracked her knuckles, and took the marker from Langley without so much as glancing his way. "You have 5 minutes," Langley said, crossing his arms. She gave him a look. "Give me 3." And then she began. The sound of the marker against the whiteboard was soft but steady. Students leaned forward in their seats, their eyes darting between Madeline and the rapidly filling board. At first, Langley's smirk remained fixed in place. But as the seconds passed, something in his expression changed. Doubt. Because she wasn't hesitating. She wasn't guessing. She was solving. "She's actually doing it," someone whispered. Langley took a step closer, watching her process each step with surgical precision. Her movements were smooth, confident, and deliberate. Halfway through the problem, she paused, tilting her head slightly, then pivoted to adjust her approach. Langley's stomach twisted. He had expected panic. He had expected her to freeze under the pressure. Instead, she was adapting and winning. Numbers didn't lie, and Madeline Carter understood them better than most. By the time she reached the final step, the atmosphere in the lecture hall had shifted completely. Gone was the amusement, replaced by stunned silence. Even those who had hoped to watch her fail were now watching with a grudging sort of awe. "She's about to finish it," someone muttered. Langley uncrossed his arms without thinking. He could see it. The answer was forming in front of him, and it was correct. 30 seconds later, Madeline capped the marker, turned to face him, and raised an eyebrow. "All done," she said. The room exploded. Some students cheered. Others clapped. A few simply gaped at her, mouths hanging open. Langley's smirk was gone. His eyes darted from Madeline to the board, searching desperately for a mistake. There was none. She knew it. He knew it. Madeline crossed her arms and tilted her head. "So, Professor," she said, her voice cutting but polite, "does this mean I get to stick to both politics and math?" The room lost it. "Damn," she wrecked him. That was epic. He totally set himself up for that one. Langley's face darkened. This doesn't prove anything," he muttered. Madeline stepped closer, lowered her voice so only he could hear. "Doesn't it?" she asked softly. "You thought I was just some loudmouth conservative who wouldn't last 5 minutes in your class." His jaw clenched. But instead, she continued, "You just prove that your bias is louder than your logic." Madeline stepped back, slinging her bag over her shoulder. "Class dismissed," she said. The students erupted again, cheering, laughing, clapping, as Madeline walked out of the lecture hall. Langley stood frozen, staring at the whiteboard, staring at the reality of his defeat. For the first time in his career, he had nothing to say. Outside, Madeline's phone buzzed like crazy. Mention, texts, messages, notifications blowing up faster than she could read them. By the time she crossed the quad, the first clips had already gone viral. Langley? He had walked right into it. And Madeline Carter? She'd walked out with the win.